Know your worth. I'm Jessica Denson, and this is Lights On. What an incredibly beautiful week. The Democratic National Convention was so much more than a political event. It was a sermon. At a time in American history where the ugliest, most dangerous, and regressive forces want us to forget who we are, where the man leading them has no idea who he is. This week, speaker after speaker reminded us to know our worth, to know who we are as individuals and as a nation, our immense value, to love it, to honor it, and know the awesome responsibility that comes with it, to be worthy of it. To whom much is given, much is required. I knew on Monday that the theme of motherhood would be strong. Kamala's childhood best friend told us that they got their grit from their moms, and how many of us can relate to that? If your mom is anything like mine, she is a force to be reckoned with, and she is always telling me, Jessica, know your worth. I don't know about you, but this continues to be the most important lesson of my life. 7 years ago, I sued the campaign of the sitting president of the United States, and that lawsuit has come to stand for so much, for justice and accountability, for freedom and transparency and truth. But there was one thing it stood for to me that made all the rest possible. And that was that I was finally willing to do something I had resisted for so long, to stand up for my own worth, to know it, to love it, to honor it, and God knows, to do something about it. This week was a rallying cry for the self-respect at the heart of true patriotism, of true freedom, and not just from Democrats. Republicans, many Republicans, like Adam Kinzinger, showed us that their worth is not in a party affiliation. It's not in a seat in Congress. It is in their character, their honor, and their courage to do what's right when and especially if it's not easy and it's not popular. So, from Adam to the Clintons, to the Obamas, Tim Walz, to Oprah, and our dear, heroic President Joe Biden, you are in today for a power hour of the best of the best of this convention. And believe me, it was so hard to narrow it down. And of course, we'll cap it off with a woman who is in complete possession of herself and thus driving Donald Trump out of his mind. He wants desperately to define her, but he can't, because her mother taught her better. Kamala Harris is showing him and showing us all who she is. So welcome everybody to Lights On. I'm so excited for this show today. I put a lot of work into bringing these beautiful, beautiful clips together for you on the theme of our own worth and our own value and how much each one of us matters, how much our voice matters. That was another huge theme and a clip that you'll hear today. I wanted to share with you just a brief montage of a few clips from this show, from themes that I have introduced, going back to actually May of last year, where as I did today, I start off with the theme, Know Your Worth. I've started off with these themes that have really just come full circle in this campaign and this convention. I'm sharing them with you because you are so much part of this show with me, and I want you to know, as I am learning, it's a lifelong journey for me to know my own worth. I want each one of you to know how powerful your voice is. Never underestimate how much you contribute to the world around you, how important you are, and how much knowing and loving yourself matters to the world around you, to your neighbors, to your fellow citizens, and the whole world. So here's a brief montage, like I said, going back to May of last year, and then the other clips are just from about a month or so back when we were really, going through that really tough time when we didn't know if Joe Biden was going to stay in the race. Here you go. We are not going backwards. No, we are not doing this. I'm Jessica Denson, and this is Lights On. It's we the people, remember? I'm Jessica Denson, and this is Lights On. United, we stand. I'm Jessica Denson, and this is Lights On. What I really, really see is an opportunity for the DNC. I mean, this could have been like their Messiah moment, as blasphemous and heretic as that sounds for the RNC, and they missed it. But the DNC now really has the opportunity to unite, talk about unity, to unite after this headache that we've all been through for the past 3 weeks and come out in shining colors with more energy than ever before at their convention next month. So what a beautiful thing it has been to see them completely take that cue, come together with unity, with just an complete split screen. If you look at the RNC and what a clown show that was, with the opportunity that they had so much momentum going into it. And then this beautiful, energetic, effusive, patriotic, serious too, funny, emotional, all of those things moment at the DNC. What a complete ownership of this moment. I am so grateful to see that it happened. Just as a few matters of news I will start off with before we go into the convention. We have, Donald Trump just not knowing how to handle himself, because as I mentioned at the end of last week's show, he does not know himself. This is why he is losing his mind, because not being in possession of oneself and living 7+ decades, going on 8, of being in denial about who you are and not wanting to face your errors, your mistakes, your sins, not wanting to repent to become a better person is bound to drive you insane. So he's just losing it again over this absolute knock out of the park success of the DNC. Just for some comic relief, yeah, there's a photo. I really think this picture of Donald Trump on the border yesterday pretty much sums up his state of mind. But after Kamala's speech last night, he had some moments of disarray, calling into Fox News, desperately trying to, salvage something for himself. And I think we deserve a little bit of humor from his flailing attempts to spin the beautiful, powerful presidential speech from Kamala Harris last night. So let's just start off with Trump's calls into Fox News.
She's raising taxes. She's going to give a tax increase of 4 to 5 times what people and companies are paying right now. The country will go into a depression if they do it.
Did you hear you heard the buttons, right? He's so upset. He's pressing buttons on the phone. They actually had to cut him off. Here's that clip.
Beaten Joe Biden in a Democrat primary. I have no doubt about it. And they made it absolutely impossible for him. They made it that you have to get 60-70% of the vote just to get in. And you know what?
President.
In the end, the Democrats did the same thing to Joe Biden. They threw Joe Biden out of the party.
And that's
they
why
did
we
the
saw a
same
different
thing
night
as they
tonight.
did to RFK.
Mr. President, thank you so
very
much
sir.
for the time. We appreciate that live feedback.
Stay right there. Live edition of Gutfeld is coming up. Thank you so much for joining us from Chicago.
Now, if you're like me, you remember when they had to do the same thing during his presidency, right? I mean, literally, the sitting president of the United States would not actually do his work. He would golf a lot, get up late, and call into Fox and Friends and the Fox News, call in to talk to the Fox anchors, and they had to cut him off then, too. That was part of the national trauma that we lived through back in the Trump presidency, if anybody has forgotten about that. But, there's some truth coming out of Fox these days. Now, I don't want to give them too much credit. Definitely not. I did some switching over to Fox this week as I was watching the convention, and they are doing their damnedest to try to, spin any negativity out of this immensely positive and beautiful convention that they possibly can. They had Trump at that scene on the border that I showed you, just spinning lie after lie. They had Chiron saying that the convention was about emotion and not about policy. I don't know about you, but I heard a lot of policy. I heard policy on reproductive freedom, on the economy, on climate, on union jobs, on and on and on. I heard policy from that campaign. So don't get me wrong, they're trying to spin it, but there's another clip that came out today, another point of deflection that the Trump campaign is trying, or Trump in coalition with some friendly other candidate. Yes, I'm talking about RFK Jr. It was, kind of a dropout speech befitting of a off the rails candidate like RFK. He was supposedly supposed to be completely dropping out and endorsing Trump altogether, but he didn't really fully do that. He kind of announced that he's suspending his campaign and he's still going to stay on the ballot in a few states. So it was not a full-throated endorsement at all. But even Fox News, even Karl Rove had some very on-point reminders about the nut job that is RFK Jr. God help him. Here's Karl Rove on Fox today.
He's got lots of conspiracies. 2004 election was stolen as computers switched nearly 250,000 votes in Ohio from John Kerry to George Bush and thereby gave him the election. 5G is a mass surveillance tool, and the telephone companies are in on it. CIA killed his uncle. Sirhan didn't kill his father. And he defends Russia in Ukraine. It's all Ukraine's fault that Russia invaded him and is killing its people. I mean, this guy's a nut.
This guy's a nut. I had another clip, but I figured I'd just read it for you instead. One of the reporters on CNN today, when they were announcing it, she said this. She said, now you might be wondering why Trump's team would want RFK Jr.'s endorsement. RFK Jr.'s campaign has been plagued with scandal. A parasitic worm had entered into his brain and died there. He evaded questions on allegations of sexual assault, and he admitted he left a dead bear cub in Central Park. Animal lover here, so you know that one is enough to disgust me. Of course, I was never inclined to follow this man in the first place, but I really think, this is just another flailing attempt to distract, to try to regain some momentum. At the end of the day, I think a lot of the support that was behind RFK Jr., these were not Democratic or pro-democracy coalition leaning individuals. These were people who were more conspiracy driven and motivated. They were already, I feel, more inclined to Trump in the first place. So does it have a big effect? I don't really think so. Do we still need to pull out all the stops and absolutely, turn out this vote like never before? Yes, 100% we do. So let's get into this beautiful, beautiful convention. We can start, this is kind of a special place to start for me because I know how much hate was directed at Hillary Clinton in 2016. I most certainly know how much hate was directed towards her in the lead up to that campaign from the Fox Newses of the world. I lived in this echo chamber, and it was really, it was really ugly. I see it in retrospect, how ugly it was. The misogyny and just the amount of hatred that was engendered for this woman who may have her flaws, but is an incredibly accomplished woman, would have made a formidable and wonderful president. So I really appreciated Hillary Clinton's speech at the DNC this week. I have two montages of clips I want to show you. The first, I really think, is just Miss Hillary Clinton taking back her moment. How many times was I at Trump rallies in 2016 where they said, lock her up, lock her up? Well, here's Hillary Clinton's moment at the DNC this week.
As a prosecutor, Kamala locked up murderers and drug traffickers. She will never rest in defense of our freedom and safety. Donald Trump fell asleep at his own trial, and when he woke up, He made his own kind of history, the first person to run for president with 34 felony convictions. As Vice President, Kamala sat in the Situation Room.
Yep. Lock him up, because the difference here is the man is a convicted felon who deserves the actual punishment that fits the crime. So there's that beautiful, full circle moment for Hillary Clinton there. Now, another thing she did, which I really love, because this is so applicable to so many of us that may be fighting for something, and we seem to get so close so many times, and we may be discouraged, and we may want to give up, and we may think, why didn't it happen? And man, oh man, we just have to keep pushing. We have to keep again and again and again and again, keep pushing until we break that ceiling. And I loved Hillary Clinton talking about how her presidential run, did she make it? No. But was it absolutely instrumental in getting us to where we are right now? You damn well better believe it. Here's Hillary Clinton on the future that's now.
And then there was 2016, when it was the honor of my life to accept our party's nomination for president. And nearly 66 million Americans voted for a future where there are no ceilings on our dreams. And afterwards, we refused to give up on America. Millions marched, many ran for office. We kept our eyes on the future. Well, my friends, the future is here. So for the next 78 days, we need to work harder than we ever have. We need to beat back the dangers that Trump and his allies pose to the rule of law and our way of life. Don't get distracted or complacent. Talk to your friends and neighbors. Volunteer. Be proud champions for the truth and for the country that we all love. I want my grandchildren and their grandchildren to know I was here at this moment, that we were here, and that we were with Kamala Harris every step of the way. This is our time, America. This is when we stand up. This is when we break through. The future is here. It's in our grasp. Let's go win it.
Did you see her eyes tearing up a little bit there? I did, when she was talking about, I want to be here to see this. I want to be here to see this. It's so beautiful that she's going to get to see this moment, that we are going to fight like hell from now until November 4. And she talked about, in the lead up to that, she talked about all the women who have brought us to this moment, like her, about Shirley Chisholm, about this being the 104th anniversary of women's suffrage, the 19th Amendment that, of course, gave women the right to vote. Shirley Chisholm, of course, being the first Black female member of Congress who ran, also made history running for president many years ago. How many women have been instrumental in putting all of those cracks in that glass that is now going to just shatter? It's a really, really beautiful thing to witness. Another woman who is making history in her own right. She's been a guest on Lights On, and we'll have her back again soon, is the extraordinary superstar Congressman Jasmine Crockett. Now, she told a story early this week that I loved so much. I got to tell you guys, I've been off Twitter all week because I'm writing my book, which, by the way, as some of you have asked, Jessica, where's your book? The book is coming. And I just want to thank you so much for being with me on this journey. And I want to tell you, there are circumstances that have kept me from writing or finishing the book until now. It is those same circumstances that are going to absolutely blow your mind when you finally get to read it. And it's a labor of love. And I'm so happy to finally be able to finish it, and I will be sharing it with you very soon. So on the theme of doing something, I disciplined myself enough to stay off Twitter this week so that I could write, watch the convention, have it on mute, write, turn it up, mute again. And that was my week. And as I was writing, I in particular happened to be writing a story that was all about empathy. And of course, how Donald Trump doesn't have it, and kind of my waking up to this, but not fully acknowledging it back in 2016 when I was on the campaign. And as I was writing this story about empathy in my book, I turned up the volume and listened to Representative Jasmine Crockett tell this incredible story about her first meeting with Vice President Harris. If you didn't hear it, you got to hear it. Here it is.
Many of you know her credentials, but what I love about Kamala Harris goes beyond her resume. Is that she sees the humanity in everyone. She's the only candidate in this race who is capable of empathy. When I first got to Congress, I wasn't sure I made the right decision. The Chaos Caucus couldn't elect a speaker, and the Oversight Committee was unhinged. I was going through all of this when I visited the Vice President's residence for the first time. As I approached Vice President Harris for our official photo, she turned to me and asked, "What's wrong?" Mind you, we'd never met, but she saw right through me. She saw the distress. I immediately began crying. And the most powerful woman in the world wiped my tears and listened. It's so hard for me to tell this story. She then said, among other things, "You are exactly where God wants you. Your district chose you because they believe in you, and so do I." Okay, I'm gonna stop. Okay. The next month, I went viral for the first of many times to come for hitting Republicans with a dose of their own medicine. That brief but impactful interaction gave me my legislative legs, and I've been running ever since. The question before us is, will a vindictive, vile villain violate voters' vision for a better America or not? I hear alliterations are back in style.
Oh man, I love that so much. And oh my God, how relatable is that when you heard her tell that story of Kamala Harris saying, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I think like millions of Americans could just feel it with her. Like you just need a tiny trigger for that emotional well to break, because something is wrong and you need somebody to acknowledge it. I really thought about Kamala Harris just in the context of everything we're dealing with these ugly attacks on childless people and attacks on families. And as someone like Kamala Harris, who never birthed a child herself, but has those beautiful motherly instincts, of course, her stepchildren call her Mamala, and that motherly love, that strong, caring, very perceptive motherly love comes out in everything that she says and does. And it did with Representative Jasmine Crockett. Rep Crockett went on to quote Amanda Gorman from the inaugural of Joe Biden back in 2020, where she said that line that I love so much. It's very much a theme of this show. She said, "There's always light if we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it." And there was a line in the final verse of a poem that she wrote for this convention that I really loved. It's the theme of today's show. And so I want to share that line from Amanda Gorman with you.
We redeem this sacred scene, ready for our journey from it. Together, we must birth this early republic and achieve an unearthly summit. Let us not just believe in the American dream. Let us be worthy of it. Thank you.
Let us be worthy of it. All right, we're going to go to another phenomenal woman who, by the way, the ugly, ugly propaganda of Fox News and the like taught so many Americans and still teaches so many Americans to hate and despise. I've shared with you, I don't have hatred in my heart for any human being, but she was someone who I looked down on, who I judged, who I thought did not love this country for many years because of the propaganda of Fox News. How disgusting is that? This is a woman who obviously cares so, so deeply about this country. She came this week to give a speech that was clearly difficult for her, having lost her mother, who she loves so much, who means so much to her and Barack and their whole family. And she gave one hell of a speech. It was full of rawness. It was full of motivation. There was definitely some shade thrown in that speech, and I loved every moment of it. I tried to put together some of the best clips. Here's former First Lady Michelle Obama.
To be honest, I am realizing that until recently, I have mourned the dimming of that hope. And maybe you've experienced the same feelings. Is that deep pit in my stomach, a palpable sense of dread about the future. And for me, that mourning has also been mixed with my own personal grief. The last time I was here in my hometown was to memorialize my mother, the woman who showed me the meaning of hard work and humility and decency, the woman who set my moral compass high and showed me the power of my own voice. Folks, I still feel her loss so profoundly. I wasn't even sure if I'd be steady enough to stand before you tonight, but my heart compelled me to be here because of the sense of duty that I feel to honor her memory and to remind us all not to squander the sacrifices our elders made to give us a better future. You see, my mom in her steady, quiet way, lived out that striving sense of hope every single day of her life. She believed that all children, all people have value. Those were the values my mother poured into me until her very last breath. Kamala Harris and I built our lives on those same foundational values. Even though our mothers grew up an ocean apart, they shared the same belief in the promise of this country. That's why her mother moved here from India at 19. It's why she taught Kamala about justice, about the obligation to lift others up, about our responsibility to give more than we take. She'd often tell her daughter, "Don't sit around and complain about things, do something." If we see a mountain in front of us, we don't expect there to be an escalator waiting to take us to the top. No. We put our heads down. We get to work. In America, we do something. And throughout her entire life, that's what we've seen from Kamala Harris. The steel of her spine, the steadiness of her upbringing, the honesty of her example, and yes, the joy of her laughter and her light. It couldn't be more obvious. Who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs?
I'll snap to that. All right, we have so much more amazing content. Shout out to Jeremy, who did an excellent job with all the clips so far. All right, so let's get into these incredible clips from President Obama. I want to tell you, I'm going to skip on one just because we're so many. I want to make sure you get all of the amazing speakers that I have lined up for you today. But the one that I'm not going to play is just where he talks about his grandmother who raised him, a white woman from Kansas, and his Michelle Obama's mother, who was a black woman from Chicago, how they had such different backgrounds and yet the same values. There's the same values of grit, of care, of loving your neighbor, of caring about this country and having character and integrity and instilling that in their children and grandchildren. So he continued very much with the mother theme. Then he went on to some really, really deep and important topics, one of which was this ugly polarization that is on the other side. I really, really liked the way he addressed this. And he addressed another aspect of parenthood that probably a lot of us deal with, which is generations that still have these kind of, inherent biases, and how we have grace when we confront them and can extend that grace to others. Here's the clip.
Politics have become so polarized these days that all of us across the political spectrum seem so quick to assume the worst in others, unless they agree with us on every single issue. We start thinking that the only way to win is to scold and shame and out-yell the other side. And after a while, regular folks just tune out, or they don't bother to vote. Now, that approach may work for the politicians who just want attention and thrive on division. But it won't work for us to make progress on the things we care about, the things that really affect people's lives. We need to remember that we've all got our blind spots and contradictions and prejudices, and that if we want to win over those who aren't yet ready to support our candidates, we need to listen to their concerns and maybe learn something in the process. After all, if a parent or grandparent occasionally says something that makes us cringe, We don't automatically assume they're bad people. We recognize that the world is moving fast, that they need time and maybe a little encouragement to catch up. Our fellow citizens deserve the same grace we hope they'll extend to us. That's how we can build a true Democratic majority, one that can get things done. And by the way, that does not just matter to the people in this country. The rest of the world is watching to see if we can actually pull this off. No nation, no society has ever tried to build a democracy as big and as diverse as ours before. One that includes people that over decades have come from every corner of the globe. One where our allegiances and our community are defined not by race or blood, but by a common creed. And that's why when we uphold our values.
So the world is watching. That's where I wanted to end that clip. And the world is watching Joe Biden. He will go down in history as one of the most heroic, selfless leaders this country has ever seen. We would not have had this extraordinary unified convention if it were not for the leadership. First, the self-sacrifice of Joe Biden, and then the leadership that he showed in endorsing Kamala Harris and getting the whole Democratic Party to rally around her like this. We're going to go to Joe Biden in just a minute, but I want to give the setup that President Obama gave in honoring this man to whom we all owe an enormous debt of gratitude.
I can say without question that my first big decision as your nominee turned out to be one of my best. And that was asking Joe Biden to serve by my side as vice president. Other than some common Irish blood, Joe and I come from different backgrounds. But we became brothers. And as we worked together for 8, sometimes pretty tough years, what I came to admire most about Joe wasn't just his smarts, his experience. It was his empathy and his decency and his hard-earned resilience, his unshakable belief that everyone in this country deserves a fair shot. And over the last 4 years, those are the values America has needed most. At a time when millions of our fellow citizens were sick and dying, we needed a leader with the character to put politics aside and do what was right. At a time when our economy was reeling, we needed a leader with the determination to drive what would become the world's strongest recovery. 15 million jobs, higher wages, lower health care costs. At a time when the other party had turned into a cult of personality, we needed a leader who was steady and brought people together and was selfless enough to do the rarest thing there is in politics, putting his own ambition aside for the sake of the country. History will remember Joe Biden as an outstanding president who defended democracy at a moment of great danger. And I am proud to call him my president, but I am even prouder to call him my friend.
Now, the next speech that we're going to show you, President Biden, I will just tell you that I was in tears from beginning to end of this speech, beginning with the introduction from his daughter, Ashley, the beautiful embrace that they shared, and tears were flowing down Joe Biden's face. I'm sure you noticed when he started this speech. This is a man who knows himself. And if he did not know himself, he would not have had that ability to do what the nation called upon him to do in this moment. I was not calling for it. I had total faith in him. But what a beautiful result we have seen by that act of self-sacrifice, putting this country first. It takes knowing oneself to do these right things. And that's why, this is another theme. I almost forgot it. I'm glad I did, that I wanted to bring out today. And that is, by their fruits ye shall know them. If we had any question about the character of Joe Biden or the character of the people behind this pro-democracy coalition, look at the fruits of this week. The fruits speak for the character of the people. We know them because of these beautiful results. I want to share a few clips from President Biden talking about knowing ourselves, our theme for today, and what he did for in service of this country.
Folks, I've got 5 months left in my presidency. I've got a lot to do. I intend to get it done. It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more. I love my country more. And all this talk about how I'm angry at all those people who said I should step down, that's not true. Thank you. I love my country more, and we need to preserve our democracy. In 2024, we need you to vote. We need you to keep the Senate. We need you to win back the House of Representatives. And above all, we need you to beat Donald Trump. And elect Kamala and Tim. Folks, we just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. And there's nothing we cannot do when we do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Remember who we are, knowing this beautiful gift, this promise for freedom on earth as it is in heaven that we have been given by this divinely ordained country of ours. We have so far to go. Would we let it fall on our watch? I think not. I think not. And that's a theme. If you know President Biden, that's a theme that he has been carrying for a long time. We just have to know who we are. I don't know where you were when the roll call was going on this week at the Democratic National Convention. I happened to be in my car, so I was listening to that portion of the convention on Sirius XM, and it was just like listening, frankly, to the radio with like some great music on the radio with some interjections from some people in between. And what a contrast, yet again, what a contrast with the lame and uninspired, unenergetic, falling flat cult convention of the RNC. Morning Joe put together a mashup of the split screen between the roll call at the RNC and the roll call at the DNC. Here's a little sample of that.
Delegates and alternates, let us commence with the call of the roll of the states.
Delegates, are you ready? Let me hear you.
Iowa, 40 delegates.
Dude, you gotta do it. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never.
Georgia. 59 delegates.
Fire! Get out! Another round of shots! DNC! Turn out for what?
West Virginia, 32 votes. President Donald J. Trump.
So high quality entertainment, star power. There was also so much humor. We've had a lot of it already today. There's another great clip that I love from Hakeem Jeffries talking about former ex-president, disgraced ex-president, felon Trump as a certain kind of relationship that we just want to put behind us. Here's that clip.
Donald Trump is like an old boyfriend who you broke up with, but he just won't go away. He has spent the last 4 years spinning the block, trying to get back into a relationship with the American people. Bro, we broke up with you for a reason.
I love it. Okay, some more great humor came from Kenan Thompson of SNL. He was the MC of the Project 2025 section. There was a great bit where he talked to individuals whose lives will actually be impacted if these, God forbid, draconian policies of this 900+ page manifesto that is a Trump policy initiative, make no mistake, come to fruition. Before he brought those people in from around the country, he had this very comical opening.
You ever seen a document that could kill a small animal and democracy at the same time? Here it is. You know how when you download an app and there are hundreds of pages there that you don't read, it's just the terms and conditions, and you just click agree, right? Well, these are the terms and conditions of a second Trump presidency. You vote for him, you vote for all of this. Let's take a look.
So we've spent a lot of time on this show talking about Project 2025. If you haven't caught it, I did an episode just last week, a short with Representative James Tallarico of Texas. He is living the state version of Project 2025 enacted already. He has some very clear warnings. So we're not going to go more into that today, but definitely check out that episode. We're going to continue to shine a light on Project 2025. And I love the way that they did it with humor at the DNC this week. Now, who is more of a force in American life and has been for so many years than Oprah Winfrey? Another just extremely funny, resilient, powerful speech from Oprah. I particularly liked this clip where she talks about the childless Catwoman.
We are not so different from our neighbors. When a house is on fire, we don't ask about the homeowner's race or religion. We don't wonder who their partner is or how they voted. No, we just try to do the best we can to save them. And if the place happens to belong to a childless cat lady, well, we try to get that cat out too.
Another great clip from Oprah, common sense over nonsense. Listen for it.
We are Americans. Let us choose loyalty to the Constitution over loyalty to any individual. Because that's the best of America. And let us choose optimism over cynicism, because that's the best of America. And let us choose inclusion over retribution. Let us choose common sense over nonsense. because that's the best of America. And let us choose the sweet promise of tomorrow over the bitter return to yesterday. We won't go back. We won't be set back, pushed back, bullied back, kicked back. We're not going back.
You got it? We're not going back. All right, we're saving some of the best for the last. Don't mind if we go a few minutes overtime today. I'm gonna pack it all in, and I have a really, really special funny clip at the end. You don't want to miss it. So we're gonna get in these amazing clips over the next 10, 15 minutes. I want to cue up Tim Walz, Governor Tim Walz, with another theme that I have been raising, that others in the pro-democracy movement have been raising. This was a huge theme of mine because I knew the way that I was hoodwinked in 2016 and the lead up to it was from the hijacking of the freedom platform from Republicans who care nothing about freedom, from Donald Trump, who is the antithesis, who aspires to dictatorship. I just want to play a brief clip because it's so beautiful to see our aspirations coming to fruition of me talking with Allison Gill on the Daily Beans podcast back in 2022 in the lead up to the midterms. Listen to our conversation about freedom.
Former Navy. I'm a disabled veteran. I worked for the federal government. Yet I am somehow not a patriot. I am somehow not into freedom. And I think that the Democrats have a real opportunity here to seize on this and reclaim what it means to be a patriot. And so,
Amen.
It's right. So how do we do this going forward to the midterms?
You know what? You hit the nail on the head. I saw Josh Shapiro tweet last night and he put freedom in the tweet. I'm like, thank you, my friend, because this is it. The Democrats are finally getting the cue. We have to take back the freedom platform from the Republicans who have literally just hijacked it in the name of autocracy and dictatorship and communism.
And Christo-fascism. I mean,
yes.
It's all the way there. And I think
and the freedom platform it's so fundamental, Allison, because we as human beings, it's like the most basic desire to be free. It's something we all share. And the Republicans know that. That is why they have harped on it and hijacked it for all this time. It's the most basic desire that we as human beings have, is to be free. So I would say Democrats 2022 reclaim the freedom platform. And it is no joke. I mean, this is it. Our freedom, it really is on the line. And
we have 2 elections before we slide into autocracy. It's the alarm. It's a 5-alarm fire.
So I think they're listening. Did you hear the freedom platform this week at the Democratic National Convention? You absolutely heard it. You saw the signs. No one brought that platform better than the vice presidential nominee, Governor Tim Walz. Here is his rallying cry for freedom with a very special shout out to his family that we're going to talk about on the other side. Here's Governor Tim Walz.
Hope, Gus, and Gwen, you are my entire world, and I love you. I'm letting you in on how we started a family, because this is a big part about what this election is about. Freedom. When Republicans use the word freedom, they mean that the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. Corporations free to pollute your air and water. And banks free to take advantage of customers. But when we Democrats talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make a better life for yourself and the people that you love. Freedom to make your own healthcare decisions. And yeah, your kids' freedom to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in the hall. Look, I know guns. I'm a veteran. I'm a hunter. And I was a better shot than most Republicans in Congress, and I got the trophies to prove it. but I'm also a dad. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also believe our first responsibility is to keep our kids safe. That's what this is all about. The responsibility we have to our kids, to each other, and to the future that we're building together, in which everyone is free to build the kind of life they want.
Now, you saw it in there. You saw Gus Walz stand up and say, "That's my dad. That's my dad." Now, I gotta tell you something. I told you a few minutes ago how I've been off Twitter this whole week. And I thought two things when I saw Gus Walz. First time I saw him up on the stage, I thought, man, that's a good looking kid. Second time I saw him, it was when he said, "That's my dad." And that was just such a beautiful moment. How could anybody construe it as anything else? And into that theme of motherhood and fatherhood and parenting, care, that unadulterated, pure love that really makes us care for one another, and that we are extending as a national family, as a global family. But I went on Twitter and, of course, discovered these ugly attacks on Gus Walz, who I was not aware has ADHD. These ugly attacks from people like Ann Coulter calling him weird for saying, "That's my dad." I mean, what is wrong with these people? What is wrong? I mean, talk about weird. You don't have the normal human reaction that I did, and I'm sure millions of Americans did when they saw that young man acknowledge and be proud and just in awe of his father. And you try to spin that into something negative? God help you. What is wrong with you, Ann Coulter, and anybody else who said anything like that? So there was my sanity of being off of social media for the week, not being exposed, at least initially, to that nonsense. But beautiful, beautiful to see the Freedom Platform being taken back. And of course, you've got Republicans who have come to their senses like me. I'm no longer a Republican. I'm an independent. So many, from Adam Kinzinger to former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, to Olivia Troy and Stephanie Grisham, who worked in the Trump White House. You even had today a dozen former Republican, high-profile Republican lawyers come out and endorse Vice President Harris, including J. Michael Luttig, of course, the very well-known judge who emerged in the January 6 hearings. I want to play a clip from Adam Kinzinger, because this is a man who gave up his seat in Congress, who realized that putting country over party and the demands, the urgency of this moment over his own desire to stay in a seat in Congress was more important. He's a living example of demonstrating that worth. And here's Donald Trump talking about the total flip side of knowing oneself, the weak, pathetic man that is Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is a weak man pretending to be strong. He is a small man pretending to be big. He's a faithless man pretending to be righteous. He's a perpetrator who can't stop playing the victim. He puts on, listen, he puts on quite a show, but there is no real strength there. As a conservative and a veteran, I believe true strength lies in defending the vulnerable. It's in protecting your family. It's in standing up for our Constitution and our democracy. That is the soul of being a conservative. It used to be the soul of being a Republican, but Donald Trump has suffocated the soul of the Republican Party. His fundamental weakness has coursed through my party like an illness, sapping our strength, softening our spine, whipping us into a fever that has untethered us from our values. Our democracy was frayed by the events of January 6th, as Donald Trump's deceit and dishonor led to a siege on the United States Capitol. That day, I stood witness to a profound sorrow, the desecration of our sacred tradition of peaceful transition of power, tarnished by a man too fragile, too vain, and too weak to accept defeat. How can a party claim to be patriotic if it idolizes a man who tried to overthrow a free and fair election?
All right, so I was going to skip for time this very powerful montage of January 6th that the DNC put together, but I'm not going to, because I want you to be able to take this episode and share it with anybody who has not yet seen it. And this is such an important component of this convention. It's such an important component of what we're living with right now. We, of course, all know if we did not have a corrupt and extra constitutional Supreme Court, that Donald Trump would be on trial right now for his crimes that led up to January 6th. We need to understand who this man is, the damage that he has caused. We had two guests from this show who lived directly the pain and suffering that Donald Trump forced upon the American people. Craig Sicknick, the brother of Brian Sicknick, who's been a guest on the show, was a speaker at the convention. Also, Sergeant Aquilino Gonell has been on the show many times, spoke. We need to know what Donald Trump did to this country on January 6th. And here is most of a very powerful montage that was played this week.
Give up, we will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
350, it does look like we're going to have an ad hoc march stepping off here. There's a crowd surge heading east.
Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of our country. And if you're not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. I will tell you right now.
We're going to give riot warnings. You're the apparatus here. We're going to give riot warnings. We're going to try to get compliant, but this is now effectively a riot.
49 hours declaring it a riot.
5 to 50 be advised. We're trying to bridge and get to the Capitol. We're trying to have the upper deck down. We need an area for the House members. They're all walking over now through the tunnels. We need to move now.
Copy.
If we lose any more time, we may lose the ability to leave. So if we're going to leave, we need to do it now. We lost the line. We lost the line. All PD, get back. All PD, get back to the upper deck. H208 with 4 members. The door's barricaded. There's people flooded the hallways outside. We have no way out. Officers still remaining on the House floor, so we can secure the members on the other side. Copy. Get them up!
And if I win, I will be looking very, very strongly about pardons. And I mean full pardons with an apology to many, an apology. They were peaceful people. These were great people. The crowd was unbelievable. And I mentioned the word love, the love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
Four officers took their lives after January 6th. Can you imagine what it was like to live through that day? Can you imagine? This man, if you haven't heard, Donald Trump has announced that he's going to have an quote unquote awards gala for rioters who stormed the Capitol on January 6th at his Bedminster mansion in September. I will also remind our viewers, yes, he has promised to pardon them now as a campaign ploy, but as someone who really values no one, doesn't really value himself at the end of the day either, he could have pardoned these people before he left office if he really wanted to pardon them. He did not. He's using them as he uses everyone, even the criminals that he turned into criminals to betray our country. All right, we are going to definitely end today on a positive note. I had some clips of Maya Harris, Kamala Harris's sister. I'm not going to play them today other than to tell you she gave more on the mommy theme. I love how she's a 57-year-old accomplished lawyer, but she still calls their mother Shamala mommy when she's recounting the stories of her. She told about their mother telling them, as Kamala has said, to know and show who you truly are, that she would have been so proud of Kamala in this moment. And then she would have said, get to work. So there is one woman who is very much getting to work, who is so prepared in every way, shape, and form for this moment. I loved the last person actually to speak before her was North Carolina Governor Ray Cooper, who served as an attorney general back when Kamala Harris was attorney general of California, and they were fighting for those homeowners against the big banks. And he told the story about how there was the settlement that was on the table for $4 billion. And Kamala Harris said, I've met with these families. I know them. I know what they've been through. That's not enough. I'm not settling for any $4 billion, as good as that number seemed. And she got $20 billion from them. And I thought of that as it applies to the theme of this show today. She knew their worth. She stood up for their worth. And you know why she was able to do it? Because she knew her own value. It all comes together. Knowing our own value enables us to stick up for others, to value our neighbors, to honor and uplift them. It's the non-zero-sum game in contrast to the zero-sum game of Republicans. We're going to end today before the funny clip that you got to stick around for at the very end. We're going to end with this powerhouse of a speech that Kamala Harris gave. Let's start with the references to her mom.
Taught Maya and me a lesson that Michelle mentioned the other night. She taught us to never complain about injustice, but do something about it. Do something about it. That was my mother. And she taught us, and she also taught us, and never do anything half-assed. And that is a direct quote. On behalf of my mother and everyone who has ever set out on their own unlikely journey, on behalf of Americans like the people I grew up with, people who work hard, chase their dreams, and look out for one another, on behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Anybody else out there on an unlikely journey? I'm on an unlikely journey. How many of us can relate to being on an unlikely journey and making the absolute most of it? Is there that beautiful woman, Kamala Harris? What a role model she is for all of us, men, women, children alike. This next clip is a serious clip. You'll hear the word. I particularly like what she talks about the prospect of Donald Trump wanting to jail his political opponents. I've told you before, I lived a version of political persecution under Donald Trump. People need to understand how damn serious this is.
Fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important of our lives, it is one of the most important in the life of our nation. In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. Consider not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also the gravity of what has happened since he lost the last election. Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. When he failed, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol where they assaulted law enforcement officers. When politicians in his own party begged him to call off the mob and send help, he did the opposite. He fanned the flames. And now, for an entirely different set of crimes, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans and separately found liable for committing sexual abuse. And consider what he intends to do if we give him power again. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy. His explicit intent to deploy our active duty military against our own citizens. Consider the power he will have, especially after the United States Supreme Court just ruled that he would be immune from criminal prosecution. Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself.
And he's doing a shitty job of even serving himself because he doesn't know himself. Let's end with the theme that Kamala inspired me with, that every one of those speakers inspired me with, her talking about knowing herself, the awesome responsibility that we have when we have this great worth that we do have. Here's that clip.
Well, my mother had another lesson she used to teach. Never let anyone tell you who you are. You show them who you are. America, let us show each other and the world who we are and what we stand for. Freedom, opportunity, compassion, dignity, fairness, and endless possibilities. It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done, guided by optimism and faith, to fight for this country we love, to fight for the ideals we cherish, and to uphold the awesome responsibility that comes with the greatest privilege on earth, the privilege and pride of being an American. So let's get out there, let's fight for it, let's get out there, let's vote for it, and together telling the most extraordinary story ever told. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you all.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Let us take that. Let us do something. Let us understand that the seriousness of this moment, this is Germany in the 30s for America in 2024. That is how serious it is. Let us not forget who we are and let it fall on our watch. Let us listen to Michelle Obama. Do something. Don't take this moment for granted. Understand it's going to be hard. There are going to be more obstacles in our way. We have to take this energy, get people registered to vote, fight off the efforts to not certify the election in the courts. We're going to be talking more about that next week with Crew. Register, educate, register, especially if you have friends in red states where their names may have been kicked off the rolls. Make sure, or swing states, make sure they are registered. And this cannot just be for the presidential ticket. We have to do it up and down the ballot. We must hold the Senate. We must take back the House. Everything is on the line. We can do this. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining me today and extending overtime to get all of those powerhouse speeches in. I have to leave you on a very humorous and joyful note. I didn't show you Maya's speech, but here's Maya Harris, Kamala's sister, with her a few years back. I don't know the precise date of this speech, but I think it's around when Kamala Harris was elected Attorney General. You're going to love it. Here you go.
She's General Harris. And so when she was elected Attorney General, she actually said, you realize you're going to have to start calling me General Harris. So my feeling is that when she's president of the United States, I will call her Miss President. But until then, you're just Kamala.
And then she says, I'm sister. And then she says, Sister General. I'm not sure why we cut that speech. I will repost it on my Twitter feed. I'll go back on Twitter just to repost. Okay, Jeremy's telling me we had a copyright issue, but I will go ahead and hop back on Twitter so I can share that full clip with you. It is such a joy to watch. She is going to be our next president if we do our work in the next 70 plus days. And I'm so here for it. The future is now. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining me today. I would love to remind you, if you'd like, and we need it, you can support our legal battle, my legal battle against the Trump campaign that continues in full force to this day at thejessicadenson.com/donate. thejessicadenson.com/donate. Your support there is such a beautiful help. It keeps us going, and I'm so grateful for it. You can also always find Lights On by subscribing to Lights On with Jessica Denson wherever you get your audio podcasts, and by subscribing to Jessica Denson on YouTube. A few of you have asked me to upload the full episodes to YouTube. I think I might start doing that this week, so definitely subscribe there. I love you all so much. I'm so energized, so inspired, and I just want to do the work to get this done. Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful weekend and let your light shine.